This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Morning, everyone, to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and today, first shout out and congratulations to the Tar Heels on that win last night in the college basketball championship. So we're definitely going to discuss some college basketball. I'm going to talk to you guys about what Mark Few of Gonzaga had to say in regards to what some people believe is a play that cost them the game, as well as who so far has decided to declare for the draft. And then, of course, some football news. We have a lot of news to get into just around the world of sports, so a lot to discuss. Some just regular NBA news as well. So quite a bit to get into in our discussion tonight. So definitely some things to start off with. So first off, I wanted to get into with the college basketball side is what exactly this play was that had everyone really bent out of shape last night. So one thing that I love about social media, especially in particular Twitter, is how we get to really talk about certain plays, especially when it comes to like sports and sporting events and other just events throughout the world. But especially my favorite is when it does come down to like with sporting events, is you can hop on Twitter, especially, and depending on who you're following and depending on what sources, I follow a lot of sports and a lot of people who only tweet about sports, of course, different reporters and things. But it's fun to see the fan side and then the professional side of different reporters and things like that, and our reactions to certain plays, certain calls, outcomes, and just it's a lot of fun because I just feel like I have more friends to talk to in regards to certain plays, and I like to see other people's reactions because, you know, there's times when you see a play called or something like that for your team or against your team, and you're excited, you're not happy, and it's fun to see what everybody else has to say as well. So that's one thing that I love about Twitter is I always, when I'm watching games, a lot of times I have my phone with me and I'm on Twitter because I want to see what everybody else is saying, and it's a lot of fun just to see. And so last night, if you were on Twitter at all during the game, you guys saw that a lot of fans were kind of upset with the way the game was getting called. There was 44 fouls called in total in that game last night. So a lot of people on both sides of the fandom were not happy. Some were just over it. But in particular, one play in particular that really set it off with fans. And I wanted to tell you guys what Mark Few had to say, because a lot of people believe that this was a critical point in the game that eventually led to Gonzaga falling to North Carolina. So anyway, it was a loose ball that Kennedy Meeks was going for, as well as so it was Kennedy Meeks of North Carolina was battling Gonzaga's Silas Melson for the loose ball. And at this point, it's 66-65, with North Carolina up by 1 and 49.1 seconds left on the clock. So they're going for the ball, the loose ball, and he's trying to snatch the ball from Melson of Gonzaga. And as Kennedy Meeks is doing this, his right hand goes out of bounds, right? But instead of being called out of bounds and going towards Gonzaga and going in Gonzaga's favor, it was a jump ball was called, and the Tar Heels, because of the way that, it played out, the jump ball was called, and the Tar Heels got to keep possession, and then were able to go on and score from that. So basically, a lot of people were like, why didn't the coach want to review that? Why didn't he challenge that? And, why wasn't it asked? Because then the Tar Heels turned that extra possession into 2 points from Isaiah Hicks, which now made it 68-65 with 26 seconds left on the clock. And then, unfortunately, Gonzaga turns over their next possession, and Justin Jackson dunks it in with 12 seconds left, making it 70-65. And, that's basically game. And so a lot of people were saying, that was a critical play, and that if it were, because then North Carolina ends up winning 71-65. So basically they were saying, what would have happened if Gonzaga got the play on the out of bounds, were able to bring it back up. So we'll see. It's one of those things that angles have a lot to do with it. And Mark Few, he said, no, there wasn't, and I'm quoting him in regards to this play at the end of the game when he was asked about it. No, there wasn't any talk of reviewing the play. I wish, and that's probably on me. I had no idea. From my angle, it didn't look like it was a situation where there was an out of bounds situation, or else I would have called for a review. And then he went on to say it's tough to hear, but that's just the way it goes. And unfortunately, it didn't go in his favor. Who knows what could have happened had they had gained the possession off the out-of-bounds call. And that's kind of like the thing. There's been screenshots of it floating around Twitter, Instagram, and things like that. People say that it's clear. But then again, it does have to do with angles. And perhaps nobody else on his bench, as far as staff is concerned, saw that. And that's why nobody stood up to challenge it or tell him to challenge it. And it happens sometimes, and it sucks. It really does. Coach of North Carolina, Roy Williams, he said it's a very difficult game to call, and that he sits over there and he's not worried about he tries not to worry about what the officials are doing, but he's thinking about his offense and thinking about what they're doing wrong. And he's the kind of coach, because there's all kinds of people, you have the people that say, well, if we would have just made this one last play. And then you have some people that say, well, if we would have made those 8 free throws that we missed in the first quarter or the first half, maybe we wouldn't have been in this situation later on. So there's a lot of if and what of, could have, should have, ifs type things that could have happened in this. So, a sad way to go out, as far as, for some of you Gonzaga fans, I know, are quite upset about that. And then if you are on the North Carolina side, no more Jordan Cryface memes. And also, this is their 6th title. And this is also something that shows, again, Ben and I, we were talking about this. This is kind of what happened with the women's team, or the women's side of basketball with not North Carolina, with UConn on the women's side, is they were never used to having to play catch up. Whereas this is what Ben and I were discussing with the Tar Heels. This is not unfamiliar territory with them. They are very experienced in post-season play, as well as going deep into the NCAA tournament. They fell to Villanova last year, and so they know what it takes to pull out that little bit more to secure that win. And just sometimes it does fall in favor of just experience. So congratulations again to the Tar Heels with that one. With that, I'm going to take it to a quick break. Then when we come back, I'm going to give you guys some updates on who so far has declared for the draft, and some, of course, Dallas Cowboy news. So keep it locked here. You're listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. I will be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back, everyone, to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and to wrap up this kind of piece on college basketball, this has been the most exciting month of the year. It's one of my favorite months of the year, besides April, of course, because my birthday's in April. But anyways, as far as sports is concerned, it was such an exciting month, a lot of tears, a lot of fun, and just excitement with especially basketball, because basketball is my favorite of all the sports. So, it was a great, fun month. And so with this month wrapping up and coming to a close, and now moving on as we're in April, this is a time where things are getting a little bit more serious for some of these college ball players. So now with, it started last year and this new rule has come into play starting last year, that players can now declare for the NBA draft before April 23rd. So they have a little bit over 2 weeks left, and they can also withdraw their names before the deadline, which is May 24th, just 10 days after the final draft combine, and they can still retain their college eligibility. So before, for those of you who didn't know, when they would declare for the draft, they were automatically considered professional, and they could not go back and play college and amateur sports. So they've changed that because, it stinks when you declare for the draft, you shop around a little bit, you do some workouts, you do some combines, you visit and talk to some of these, organizations and things like that, and you don't get picked up and you can't go back to college. Now, now the D League is starting to become bigger and better, and a really huge stepping stone in that move towards the NBA. But before, it wasn't like it is now and what we're used to now. So, you had the option to play overseas, or, it left a lot of dry and blank space for a lot of these guys. So now they have time to kind of shop around and see what the interest is looking like and get some feedback before having to really make that plunge and deciding whether or not they want to go back or whatever. So anyways, I wanted to give you guys the names of a couple of guys, because some guys we knew, we could predict. Other guys are kind of still shopping around. Some have not hired an agent quite yet. We have Jarrett Allen out of Texas. He's a big guy, a center out of Texas, and he's had kind of like a roller coaster type season, but he is in conversation to being a first round selection. He averaged 13 points per game in his single season in college basketball. He hasn't hired an agent, so, still has that possibility to return. Lonzo Ball, the guard out of UCLA, and I joke, but I'm serious. I swear he did not even, finish his cup of Gatorade or water, whatever it is, Powerade, whatever it is that they give them. Didn't even untuck his jersey, didn't wipe the sweat off his brow before saying that he was declaring for the draft right after that loss in the Sweet 16 to Kentucky. He averaged 14.6 points per game and led the nation with 7.6 assists per game in his season with UCLA. So Ball is balling out of UCLA and taking his talents, hopefully, to an NBA squad. He's looking at and projected to be the number one pick overall. In North Carolina's win Tony Bradley, he did mention that he would enter the draft following that championship game last night. However, he has not hired an agent at all as well. And so, he's a guy that's really shopping around and trying to see where the interest lies and if there's any interest at this time, heavy interest. And it wouldn't be surprised, if he does return for a sophomore season after kind of just getting a feel and testing the waters for himself in the NBA draft. And then we have John Collins out of Wake Forest, a forward out of there. He was averaging 19 points and 9.8 rebounds, leading he definitely did help lead Wake Forest to its first NCAA tournament berth since 2010, so in 7 years, and is projected as well to be a first-round pick. However, he has not hired an agent yet, so we'll see as time moves on whether or not he'll change his mind on that one and just how serious he is about going to the NBA right away in this next draft. And then we also have declaring for the draft recently is Melo Trimble, a guard out of Maryland. He was a 3-time All Big Ten selection and led Maryland to 3 NCAA tournament appearances during his stint with Maryland. He also led the team with 16.8 points per game as a junior this past season. So, we'll see. He entered his name in for evaluation last season, but then did withdraw, and reportedly he is planning on hiring an agent this go around. So he's definitely more serious. He's about it. You guys know I love the guys that stick it out all 4 years, but 3 years he had a tremendous time, 3-time all-team selection. So, all Big Ten, selection there in Maryland, and had a lot of postseason appearances with them as well. So not a bad resume taking that plunge into the draft. So we'll see how that one goes as far as that is concerned for Melo Trimble out of Maryland, a guard out of Maryland. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, so we did have a basketball game last night as far as the NBA is concerned. For those of you guys who were able to catch it, the Portland Trailblazers took on the Minnesota Timberwolves in Minnesota. They fell to them 109-110. Karl Anthony Towns had a great game for his squad last night in that win. 36 points and 12 rebounds. So definitely not letting up despite the fact that, regular season is coming to a close. Definitely not going out without, making their presence known and things like that. So definitely a good look for the Minnesota Timberwolves. You guys know I like them. I like Karl Anthony Towns. He's one of my favorite big men right now, especially one of my favorite big guys coming up into the NBA. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how he develops and what he turns into as his career progresses. And then, so I'm going to get ready to take it to the last break of the episode. When I come back, like I said, I have some Tony Romo news as well as, of the Dallas Cowboys, as well as a really nice bit of news out of baseball. So we have some baseball to catch up on as well. So, we have a lot to still discuss in the world of sports. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and I'm sad because that's probably, except for, draft time, which is taking place on June 22nd, that's pretty much kind of the wrap-up segment for college basketball. So I'm pretty sad about it. I was looking forward to March and excited for March, and just as fast as it came, it has gone. So, these next few weeks are going to be, I know some people call it off season. It's not really an off season for these guys working out and, trying to do their best to not only to kind of solidify what a lot of these guys have done in the postseason with their squads, especially the ones that are those one and done guys, the Lonzo Balls and the Kentucky Wildcat style, and fashion when it comes to one and done with the draft. So we'll see. I'll definitely keep you guys updated with that as well. So anyways, I'm going to drop it to a break. And then when I come back, we're going to discuss Tony Romo and some baseball. So keep it locked here. You're listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline. And to wrap up this episode, I wanted to give you guys a recap of the scores around baseball. It was it was so cute yesterday. There was a lot of people around Sacramento. A lot of people in Sacramento are Giants fans, San Francisco Giants fans. We do have the Sacramento River Cats, but that's a minor league team. So for the major league side of everything, a lot of fans in Sacramento are Giants fans. So there was lots of orange and black around yesterday, which I just thought was so much fun. So I'm going to give you guys a recap of the games from last night. So the Braves went to go play the Mets, and the Mets definitely got that win at home. So nice 1-0 for the Mets. It was 0-6. in that win. Now, the fun fact with this game, and if you're a Mets fan, this is pretty cool. So, and this is coming from ESPN's, their stats and information site. So from them, it shows that the Mets set the major league record for most runs scored by a team in a season opening shutout win, in which they scored all of their runs in one inning. Their 6-run seventh also set the franchise record for most runs scored in any inning of a season opener. So that's great, a great stat to start off with and to set the tone for the rest of the season for the Mets. So congratulations to the Mets. And we had the Marlins and the Nationals. The Marlins lost 2-4, 2 runs there for the Marlins. A great at-home opener for the Nationals. Then we had the Pirates take on the Boston Red Sox 3-5. Again, another nice home opener for the Boston Red Sox. Then we had the Colorado Rockies take on the Brewers, and the Rockies took that one 7-5. The Blue Jays took on the Orioles 2-3. Blue Jays fell 2-3 in that one. The San Diego Padres went to go visit the LA Dodgers and lost by quite a bit. So if you're a Padres fan, I'm sorry about it. But the final score in that matchup was 3-14. The Tigers and White Sox opener in Chicago was actually postponed due to rain. So they're going to have to take care of that later on. And then the Kansas City Royals fell to the Twins 1-7. The Phillies defeated the Reds 4-3. Indians took the Rangers 8-5. The Mariners lost to the Astros 0-3. And then the Oakland A's defeated the LA Angels 2-4. So that was a good game here in Oakland as well. And so, it's just weird to me saying the LA Angels, because I went to school in Southern California and I was going there when they were still, before they made that name change. It's just interesting to me how LA has pretty much 2 of everything, but whatever, it's cool. It's LA. They do it, it's in Anaheim. The stadium's in Anaheim, but we'll call it LA for, all intents and purposes. So anyways, and so I wanted to give a nice update coming out of Texas. So with the Texas Rangers, their third base coach, Tony Beasley, opened up and sang the national anthem on opening day against the Cleveland Indians. And it was a huge moment for them because he actually missed last season for getting treatment for cancer, which he was diagnosed during spring training in 2016. So he had to deal with chemotherapy and things like that. And just really, battling cancer is not easy for anyone. And so he did sing his rendition of the national anthem. And I'm sure that was quite a moment, not only for him, but for the team and the fans as well. And, it truly is a nice, that's one thing that I love about sports. All the fans, all the teammates, all of his staff that he works with and things like that. And what a proud moment for him. And just knowing that you have all these people supporting you and backing you when dealing with something as serious and scary as cancer is, and dealing with chemotherapy and things like that. So an exciting moment for the Texas Rangers, and congratulations to him. What a night for them with that. And then now switching gears and wrapping up this episode is, of course, I'm going to wrap it up with Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys. So for those of you who have been interested in, antsy, we've been discussing what's going to happen with the Cowboys and Tony Romo, what they're going to do. This is probably some great news for you Dak Prescott fans out there. So basically today, Dallas is planning on releasing him today. And this was kind of in the works a little bit. Some people knew, not really, but could come as early as today. And he's switching over from the football field to the booth. So it is looking, he has been receiving interest from CBS, Fox, and NBC on being a commentator on the game. So switching over to the broadcasting side, he's already decided basically to officially end his football career. And, they are expected to designate Romo as a post-June 1st release, and won't really have to, as far as like salary cap and things like that. So, but, as of Tuesday, it's basically, as of today, he basically is no longer with the Cowboys. He did say that it did come down to his health, and a lot of sources were saying that, he's turning 37 later on this month, April 21st. And this past season, he only played a few parts, like pieces of 5 games over the last 2 seasons due to, he had a collarbone injury, he had back injury. He also suffered a compression fracture in his back in August. And that's when Dak Prescott kind of got his big and major debut. So, his body, and that's just the hard part about the sport, is that, sometimes no matter how much you may want to still play, your body sometimes just cannot. And so, so we'll see what he decides to do next as far as that is concerned. That he was getting some consideration and things like that from the Houston Texans as well as the Denver Broncos, but he's basically going to hang it up and throw in the towel for one last time and just make that transition into the broadcasting side of things. So it's not the end of Tony Romo. We're still most likely going to see a lot more from him. Things are going to kind of get more finalized throughout the rest of this week, and I'm sure we'll hear a bigger announcement about that later. So anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of the Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline. Ben will be back in tomorrow, and I'll be with Anthony on Thursday. So we'll talk to you later.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. from news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be, visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.